Health by Design, the podcast where we explore your brilliant biology, current research, and successful traditions to give you the health of your life. Is light important to our design? I'm so excited to share with you episode 3, where we're going to explore mitochondrial health, preventing disease, and how to protect yourself from aging as you get the sun that you need. You have been given an amazing design. From a cut that heals automatically to a nursing mama whose body makes perfect milk for her baby without knowing the recipe, to our fabulous immune system that makes antibodies against the bad guys. Is it possible that studying our design could bring us a higher level of health? That once understood, this can help you live your healthiest, most vibrant life? We mentioned the pillars of health in the first episode, bacteria in the second. Today we'll go into detail on sunlight, its antibacterial properties, how a level of 40 to 90 nanograms per milliliter can reduce your chance of chronic disease, cancer, and autoimmune issues, lower blood pressure, boost the immune system, regulate circadian rhythms, keep your bones strong, and the most look forward to part, how to protect yourself from aging as you get the sun that you need. As you probably know, I started this podcast because I wanted people to know that the way their body works is not mysterious or scary. There is logic behind how we are created. We don't have to fear disease mysteriously taking over our body. It really doesn't happen in a mysterious way. We were made in an orderly fashion, and even though we're individuals, there are foundational principles that, when we abide by them, bring health over time. My goal is to have you enjoy health so good that you don't have to think about it. You understand what works with the way you are designed, so you can have the energy and focus and lack of pain so that you can fulfill the calling you have received. For 30 years, I've studied health, and more than half of that time working actively in people's lives to help them get health. I have seen what makes a difference in people's lives. When I ask people suffering with weird symptoms if they're low in vitamin D, some will ask, surprised, "How did you know?" I want you to recognize such signs, and I think you will after listening to this episode a few times. Yet, know this, I am not a medical doctor. If a doctor has the information you're looking for to heal a disease, please see your doctor. I don't know everything, and I definitely don't know as much as your doctor about drugs. If you are looking for help with a disease, know that the government has stated that only your doctor has the cure. Legally, only drugs are allowed to quote-unquote cure disease. Today we'll focus on how sun can help, as well as what happens when we don't get enough. And we will consider, is light a needed nutrient? So if we consider the sun, it's just amazing. If it were placed closer to the earth, what would happen? We would fry. If it was further away, we would freeze and die. The sun is the perfect distance away to sustain life on earth with its amazing varieties of climates. Do you ever find yourself feeling so happy when the sun comes out after missing it for a while? And you're in its comforting warmth on, say, a warm spring morning like today? The sun can feel so good sometimes. So good that research shows for some it can reverse depression. Or to put it another way, one of the signs of vitamin D or sunshine deficiency is depression. I'm sure you know someone who's moved to Washington State and then been affected by seasonal affective disorder. They have tremendous greenery there because they have 300 days a year with rain, but not as much sun as someone from another area might be used to, causing them to get sad or depressed. There can be many reasons to feel sad. Just consider that if another reason isn't obvious, lack of sunshine or vitamin D may be it. This is a small sign that light may be a needed nutrient for humans, but let's look at how needed it is for plants. Hubby is starting seeds in the house right now for our spring garden. The evenings, however, are still too cool right now for seeds to sprout well, so every evening he lovingly brings the starter trays into the house to stay warm at night. In the morning, he brings them into the greenhouse lately for the filtered sun that the little sprouts can handle. Have you seen what happens when a seedling gets no sun? It is pale, usually leggy, long and stringy as it stretches toward the nearest light source. Why does it stretch like that? It hopes to get closer to the source of light so that it can do what plants do. Plants make important nutrients they need for growth using the process of photosynthesis. As you probably learned in elementary school, plants use light to synthesize or literally make their own food. With that process, the leggy, pale little plants become more sturdy and darker green. The sunlight is a needed nutrient. Could sunlight be a needed nutrient for humans as well as plants? Could our skin be more than just a protective covering for our insides? Could the skin that covers us be photosensitive solar panels? If our skin was a solar panel, it would have to have a purpose. It might even be a needed way of getting the nutrients that we need. So let's start there. Where do we find vitamin D? Sunlight converts the cholesterol just inside the skin into vitamin D. If you look at the chemical structure of cholesterol, you'll see it's almost identical to vitamin D. The kidneys take an OH group, and the liver takes an OH group from sunlight on cholesterol, and it transforms it into vitamin D. The process works amazingly well in most people, unless the liver and kidneys have major issues, or if stomach acid is low, or we don't eat enough fat to utilize our fat-soluble nutrients. I have seen clients have their cholesterol skyrocket when vitamin D gets really low. It seems that when D is low, the body wants to do everything it can to give you the tools to make vitamin D, primarily cholesterol. Cholesterol issues will be also addressed in another episode. But today, as we talk about sunshine and vitamin D, a big reason that they are so critical to health is that both get the mitochondria working right. Because vitamin D is a vitamin, which means it's necessary for life. There's a deficiency disease attached to not having it that cause people to die. Let's consider the foods that are high in vitamin D. So sunflower seeds, which are supposed to be a good source, they might have 1 IU per tablespoon. You heard that right. Caged store-bought eggs might have 100 to 200 IUs of D. Pastured chicken eggs may provide 300 to 1400 IUs per egg. Lard from a pastured animal may have 500 IUs per teaspoon. Cod liver oil seems to have a similar amount. I'm not sure if it's added to cod liver oil or if it's included. But as you can see, there are not many food sources, especially when you realize that if you were to go out in the sun for a couple of hours, sunbathing in a bikini, say, you might get 30,000 IUs. This means that we seem to have been designed to have sunlight be our primary source. ClinicalTrials.gov has a study registered that says that children's asthma is reduced in those whose mothers consumed more vitamin A and D. It's interesting. It has a warning on it. It kind of looks like one of those fact-checker warnings on social media that says that just because the government published this study doesn't mean they approve of it. Let's address, shouldn't we avoid the sun to prevent cancer? Researcher Dr. Michael Holick warned over a decade ago that avoiding sun exposure to prevent skin cancer results in such a drop in vitamin D levels that for every life saved from skin cancer, over 100 people will lose their lives to another form of cancer. This work is to present to you an idea that is taking shape in the eyes of many, that healing from disease may not be necessary if you never get a disease in the first place. Keeping the mitochondria and the internal mechanisms that are designed to protect us and keep the cells reproducing properly may be a powerful means of prevention. Consider that last quote by the doctor about avoiding sun exposure. We are only told about how to avoid that one life. And every life is important, but if 100 lose their lives trying to do things the same way, we need to pay attention to a new way. So we understand that there are a lot of things that can be changed with our lifestyle. And honestly, it's been a lot of years that we've known this, right? In 1971, the president at the time was advised to throw billions of taxpayer dollars towards a war on cancer. Are we really winning our battle against lifestyle diseases? Research says no. Cancer in real numbers is up in all age groups. We can't just expect that throwing money at the problem is going to make a difference. So let's talk about why this happens. The trademark of cancer is cells that reproduce wrongly. They don't know when to quit. There is some form of cellular communication that gets interrupted. If the cell knew when it was to quit, to let the new cell take over, it wouldn't be cancer. Vitamin D is actively involved in making sure that our cells get the right messages. If our body's machinery gets gunked up, and we'll talk about that also, how it can happen and how to prevent it on another episode, we might not have the right messages being communicated to our cells. A normal cell does its job over its lifespan, and then it dies, and it's replaced by a new, healthy cell. Cancer is when cells don't seem to get the memo, and they continue growing abnormally. This cellular miscommunication has been shown to happen in many of the top killers in our country. Diabetes, cardiovascular disease, heart disease, many other issues can be traced to cellular malfunction. But recent research shows it's not just in the cells. There is a specific place in the cell where energy is produced, in the organelles we call mitochondria. So vitamin D and its relation to mitochondrial communication. Getting the mitochondrial communication working within the cell again is one of the goals of helping you understand your design. But I'm not just going to give you a scientific discourse on why things go wrong. I want to share with you a little bit about the why, as well as simple ways to make your mitochondria function better. To see, your mitochondria will return to its powerful, mighty self over time. Dr. Colin Champ is an oncologist doctor who helps people get better. And he says, mitochondria up, glucose down is good for cancer patients. So I put together a really tiny infographic. You can put it on, you can save it anywhere. It takes some of these facts on what helps mitochondrial function so that you can give yourself a check to see what things you're doing and what things you can improve on that over time can help your mitochondria work better. So we know many problems can occur when cells don't communicate properly. Vitamin D is shown in research to switch on a protein that blocks aggressive cell division. When vitamin D receptors are filled, tumors can't grow. They can't grow as well because blood supply is cut. Collagen and glutamine also help with that, but those are for another episode. Back to vitamin D. In 2011, research showed a serum level of 50 nanograms per milliliter is associated with 50% lower risk of breast cancer. The researchers said more controlled trials are recommended, but Garland said, why wait? It's safe. So let's address how much is too much. Vitamin D is a fat-soluble nutrient, so there is such a thing as too much. I do know that our design put into our body has protective measures like tanning or melanin increase in the skin to slow absorption when you get enough vitamin D, as it is a fat-soluble nutrient, so there is a risk of too much. Vitamin D tells calcium where to go. And when you get too much vitamin D by itself without K2 to balance it, the calcium that it collects can be placed in places where it doesn't belong. Let me give you an example. Your shoulder, it might be called bursitis when you get pain in your shoulder from little calcium crystals that deposit there. Or how about in kidneys or an organ that gets calcium deposits or calcium crystals in a joint? But new research shows that 10,000 IUs daily is not toxic and will not allow the calcium to accumulate where it doesn't belong if you also get 100 micrograms K2, as the K2 directs the D3 to where it needs to go. It's peculiar, but 10 years ago when someone brought me their blood work, the range for vitamin D was 41 nanograms per milliliter to 50 nanograms per milliliter. You know, the reference range when you're looking at your blood work. Shortly after that, almost every lab work I saw said the reference range was 30 to 100. I've even seen a few local hospitals' lab work say that 20 to 100 is normal. To give you a little perspective, there's research that says that people whose level was 30 to 40 nanograms per milliliter were not as likely to have a cytokine storm and die if exposed to COVID, and people with 20 nanograms per milliliter or less were far more likely to end up in the hospital or worse.